a little bit about your background and then toss it to you. Do we need to know who's going to talk first beyond that? Or you'll just jump in and do your thing?
It probably works best if if you do it. You can do it in the order of the card or whatever you like. I can go last. That's up to you. So if you just organize which ones go, or just call on us. We're all very seasoned hosts, so you just do your thing and we'll just jump in. It's no big deal.
Okay. Well, I am going to introduce you all at once, and then we'll start hearing from you. So I think that'll be easier because once you guys start your talking, I want you guys to just roll. Of course, I'll jump in as needed.
Molly, I was going to ask you a question. Did Tanya tell you to make sure that your phone had battery life?
It's got plenty of battery life.
That's one of those lovely details.
I probably should have plugged in. I'm not near a plug-in now, but I might do that. But right now, everything looks good. I've already checked the signal. Everything looks good there. Now, I showed the top of the hour. So, ladies,
So let's get going.
cognizant of your time. Shall we get started?
Let's give her 100, everybody. 100, please. Let's do this.
Oh, I love this feedback.
This is her first time doing this, so we have to show her how we do it here.
It is my first time, and that's probably the first time that the first thing I need to tell everybody is this is my first. All right. Well, hello everyone. We're glad you've joined us, and what an exciting event. It is my first hosting a live Twitter space, and it is the first on behalf of the Association for Women in Communications. I'm Molly Hall, and I am on the National Board of Directors, and also joining you from Springfield, Illinois, where I'm part of the leadership here. And on behalf of AWC, I'd like to welcome you to Twitter Spaces, the next big thing in social audio. Twitter Spaces are generating a lot of buzz and social engagement for professionals, businesses, and organizations. And of course, the use of Twitter Spaces will continue to grow. So our 5 Twitter Space experts are seasoned hosts of their own spaces, and they're going to teach us hashtag space tips so we can make the perfect space and get more followers and interaction with our organizations or personal brand. So let's meet our guest experts. Tanya Schultz is the AWC South Florida chapter president, and she has served in chapter leadership since 2008. Her multimedia talk show, Social Chats, celebrated 10 years of live streaming last year. She has recently rebranded with a new website and is relaunching her previous and new shows via Twitter Spaces. Janine Grays is a marketing and communication strategist with expertise in digital media integration, event management, and media relations. She's worked with business, education, community, and social service organizations. She holds an MBA in technology management. Donna Jennings, PhD, is a retired sex therapist, writer, editor of sex positive content, and author of several books on improving sexual experiences. She hosts a popular weekly Twitter space, hashtag the sexuality space, on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Time. Tanya McKenzie is an LA County Commissioner and founder of Sand and Shores PR. McKenzie has more than 20 years of experience in media relations, marketing, and client relations. She's highlighted in the book Amazing Moms, Parents of the 21st Century, and hosts a Friday space, hashtag PR Lunch Hour. And Samantha Postman is a serial entrepreneur, international keynote speaker, thought leader, and multi-perspective storyteller. She is founder and CEO of Smart Arrow Inc., an ideation, innovation, product development, and consulting company. In addition to her live social audio expertise, she is CFO of Prairie Land Farms, Inc. So thank you to our experts. Go ahead and tell us what we need to know to create the perfect Twitter space.
So as I'm DMing and talking and everything. So welcome everybody. And I want to I'm so appreciative to my co-host of the space because I look up to them quite a bit and I would see they host incredible spaces and have helped so many different people. And so I want to kind of start it out as far as talk to Tanya McKenzie real quick and ask her when did she got into Twitter Spaces and how did she hear about Twitter Spaces?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Depending on where you are at. Twitter Spaces, listen, for me in communications, in PR, and being a woman in this industry, always looking for a way to be as effective as possible. I found myself complaining about something on Twitter one day and caught the responses from other PR women. I had the opportunity to be a part of beta testing for Twitter. So when we continued back and forth about a particular subject, all three of us were complaining about. One, I like to be a solution. Most people in the business arena know me. I'm the fix. I'm always looking for what's the fix. So as I found myself complaining about whatever it was, I think people misunderstanding what PR is and having to always educate people after they've hired us about what it was. I think we were going back and forth about that. I said, hey, if us three are having this conversation, I'm sure there's more of us out there. So why don't we, since I'm a beta tester, have a conversation and invite others that are in this field like us complaining about this to do it together? Like, how powerful is that to be in a room full of people that understand each other, that speak the language, and can identify a common problem? For me, that means they're also identifying solutions. So, being a beta tester, I had the opportunity to do that. We got it going. It took us about a week to kind of put the pieces together. We hopped on a call and we launched. So, we have been doing hashtag PR lunch hour for almost a year now. We were in COVID, people couldn't get together. And I'm always looking for a way to connect people, to find common ground, and also solutions. So with Twitter Spaces, we were able to do that. And it's been going strong. We bring in people that aren't even in the PR industry. But when it's global like this, that allows for us to also see what what problems are global. And again, now we can start looking at how solutions can be applied locally, regionally, and globally. And it's just been very, um, man, it has been glorious. I would use that word because it's breathtaking to hear from people in another country that are dealing with the exact same problems as you. So powerful. Twitter Spaces has been an incredibly powerful opportunity for us to all connect and start solving some of the problems in this industry.
Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, I so agree with you. So I'm also now our next speaker. I wanted to ask also Dr. J. I want to go around the space as far as for all our panelists to share. How did they get on Twitter Spaces? When did they get it? When were they aware about it? And how has it been for them? So Dr. J, why don't you go ahead and share with us?
Thank you, Tanya. And again, thank you for being here today. I'm excited to be with these dynamic women and to share all of our experiences that we've had in spaces. I was very fortunate that I followed Rachel Thompson, who does the Twitter chat, book marketing chat, and I met Madeline Sklar, and she was talking all about Twitter Spaces, and she was running her Twitter space for Twitter Smarter the very next day. And I hopped into that space and I have never looked back. Both Rachel and Madeline have been helpful to me. I told them that I really wanted to be able to showcase my topic, which is one that is difficult for people to address in public. And I work to do that in a very professional way. So they said, here's how you should tag your space, which is the sexuality space. And I, like Tanya was saying, have been absolutely amazed at the people that I have met, the things that have occurred. When I think about the mission of AWC, empower, educate, and connect, I'm just in awe of the collaborations that have occurred that people don't see from behind the scenes of Twitter Spaces, the mentors that I have followed at this point in time, and the job opportunities that have come my way just from doing this. And yesterday probably is my most exciting item, is that I pulled together a group of global sexuality experts to start a new initiative about how we can be lights around the globe and connect together resources and information about sexuality. So that's pretty much how I got into it and where things are right now. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you for sharing with us. Can I get Janine? Janine Gray is my co-host. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Tanya? I'm so honored to share the stage with all of you amazing women. And I tell you what, you guys are the absolute rock stars. I don't. I'm not doing half the stuff you all are doing. So I'm going to be learning myself here and absorbing as much as I can. But great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And how has Twitter Spaces helped you as far as connection and meeting new people? And because I know
Sure.
we've done some spaces because we do For a Cause space together, and when the stories, like some of the guests you have brought in, and I've listened to their story, and I was just like, wow, I would have never known this. So
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And yes, Tanya, you're right. We actually, you and I met in, if I'm not mistaken, Brent's room, and we connected instantly. But the way it's helped me, really, it's funny because I just stumbled across Twitter Spaces. Like I'm like, what is this? Like, where did this come from? What is this like purple thing? And I just like jumped in a room and I'm like, wait a minute, this is like, I don't know if I could say it in here, Clubhouse, but like better.
You can say
And
that in here.
and I'm like, what is this? I was just so intrigued. And it just had me at that moment, just like what Dr. J said, like I hadn't looked back since. And just as a marketer and communicator for the last 20 years, part of part of what we need to do as communicators is stay on top of what's happening out there as far as like on a social side, but just social media side, but just communications in general. So it piqued my interest and I started thinking about ways that um, how I could leverage and how it can help. And I think that was part of my journey is figuring out, okay, so I have, I have a role with a company. I work for a company, but I'm also an entrepreneur. But how can I use it to really help others? And so the reason why I'm on Twitter is to help others. I'm not necessarily selling a service or a product. It's really more so helping others kind of maximize whether it's social media or like PR or whatever as a whole. So I saw this Twitter space thing as like, wow, this could like really be a total game changer as far as not only making connections, but building community, right? It just takes it just takes it to the next level. So I just started figuring out ways like how am I helping companies now as, you know, a marketing coach and strategist, I can take that and literally just like connect on a global level and help other people do the same thing. So that's kind of how it's helped me. I've learned so much. I have met so many people that I never would have met. So it just really just opened up so many doors and connections and friendships as well. So, I'm just like you said, Tanya, we started the For a Cause um, Twitter space where we bring on, nonprofits and people who are doing amazing things in their communities. And so that alone has just brought me so much joy. So I'm really looking forward to like growing that continuously growing that and helping other people in that way.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited. That's why I love when we do our space together. So, I want to bring up Samantha Postman, who is like I freaking love her because she gives such incredible space tips, and besides that, life tips too. By the way, and if you get a chance to listen to her speak, like now, I'm gonna give her the mic. But she's incredible, and I love the fact that she's helping me out, and I appreciate her for being the co-host today. Samantha, how are you?
Well, with an intro like that, oh my gosh, you just made my day. Thank you. So, hi everyone, and I'm super honored to be here today. And I'm just going to tell a little bit of a story about how I got into Twitter Spaces. Just like many of you, COVID really changed my life. And for me, my dad actually ended up having cancer and having a long cancer journey during the layers of COVID. And so I lost him late last year, and I was kind of reeling from that, pivoting in my business. And so when Twitter came out with, I actually just joined Twitter pretty much in February, reactivated a dormant account that had like, I think 2 followers on it or something like that. And I joined a community, and right away I got to, I don't know, maybe 150 or 200 followers. And I applied for the beta, which I have no idea why they gave it to me, but they did. And I jumped on Twitter Spaces, gave it a go. I'm definitely a person who's a beta tester pretty much on anything. I also beta tested Clubhouse as well. And so I got on, and I remember my first space, I believe it was one on introverts. And some people might be surprised. I'm like both, right? Extroverted and introverted. And I remember the space about introverts, and I don't know why, but it really gave me a lot of courage to continue on. So I thought to myself, what do I have to offer the world from where I am from where I am? And so I have a really strong business background. I'm actually a tax accounting strategist expert by first trade. I've done over 7,500 tax returns in my first career. And so I know a lot about business, and I know a lot about people. And that's how I know a lot about life tips, I think. And so I started running these spaces called Business Startup and Side Hustle Q&A. And those just went crazy. Like, I had people from all over the world coming in and asking all kinds of questions about their businesses or startups. And that just gave me a lot of confidence. And a little while later in my DM, somebody messaged me and said, I think you're TED worthy. I'd like to help you coach. I'd like to coach you to apply for a TED Talk. Must have heard me in one of my spaces, read some of my content, and he pretty much gave me the roadmap, which is a bit funny. He gives me a roadmap and said, here's all the things I'm going to help you to do to get a TED Talk. And I thought, dang, you just gave me the roadmap. I can do that myself. So I started following the procedures, and I landed a TED Talk. And I was supposed to be speaking in September of last year. And so I spent quite a bit of time, got off spaces a bit because I was spending quite a bit of time getting my TED Talk ready. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, we all know this, right? Getting a TED Talk is life-changing and career-changing. And then I get a notification, I think it was around in the beginning of July, that the event was canceled due to COVID, because this particular event wasn't going to be able to accommodate a completely virtual event. And I honestly was I had to grieve. I was so grieved. And all the time I had lost an investment in time to get this ready and the opportunities I had given up. And so what I ended up doing that weekend, my family was gone for the weekend, and I was going to be finishing my TED Talk that weekend. So I ended up on Twitter Spaces the entire weekend, and it had nothing to do with business. It was things like relationship advice and how to overcome trauma and things about life tips, I guess. And that's how Tanya and I met. She ended up hearing me in one of those spaces, and it was just insane. I would come into a room, and people would say, Samantha Postman's in the house. We need to get her up on the stage. And then people would just start asking me questions. And the next thing I know, the host would be changing like the title, Ask Samantha About Relationships. And it would be just really surreal. And so 3 hours of just people asking. I've been married for 27 years, and people wanted to know how I did that and how I survived a lot of trauma. And that really connected with people like in a profound way. And the opportunities that come from that weekend alone, people were messaging me things like, I think you saved my marriage. I finally understand my wife. I think I can handle I was right. I wrote a letter this weekend, and I was going to end my life. And I ripped that letter up. Like, it was so amazing that weekend. It was it was a gift after all the grief I was going through of losing the TED Talk. But was really profound, what came out of that is that I got Philip Ogola, who's from the Digital Humanitarian. He's actually one of 16 in the world who was selected by the United Nations Foundation to submit a social good project. And so he's a United Nations Foundation endorsed by his project, and he approached me and asked if I would collaborate and work with him. And so I've been doing consulting and advising with him ever since. And that opportunity has just led to other international opportunities. Right now, I'm working on bidding on a project, an international project I never in a million years would have been able to do for my little small town farm in the middle of southern Alberta, Canada. And every week now, I co-host a space with Bobby Umar, who has over 600,000 followers between all the social media on thought leadership, and that's every week. And so those are the kind of opportunities that come from being on Twitter Spaces. I think what I love the most, and specifically for women, because there's no barriers. We don't have our credentials don't matter really, as long as we have good experience, we have something of value to bring to the audience, and we can help others. That's really the prerequisites. It doesn't matter what you look like, your economic background, where you live, none of those barriers are there. It's just voice. And so that's what I love about it, because it's just straight on voice and straight on connection. And it's very profound. So thank you. I hope that lived up to your expectations, Tanya.
It does. Like I said, I always I love hearing your story. That's when I had the opportunity to, Molly had asked me if I wanted to show how to use Twitter Spaces and stuff, and I said, let's do a panel, and I want to pick some of the ladies that I feel that will share their story. And I always remember hearing your story and what you do, and I've been in your spaces too, so, and how you handle the spaces. That's why I'm always so impressed. So we're going to end exactly at 1 o'clock. It's because our events are usually 60 minutes long for the national, and we want to be mindful for it. So I want to have before we take questions.
I was going to say, Tanya, we do have a question out there, and Fatima has wanted to be a speaker too, and so, or at least to ask a question. So since I'm new to this, and folks, you got to roll with me here, because I'm not used to doing.
You're doing good. You're doing good. No, I was leading up to that actually.
Okay.
So I wanted to go around one more time to let each panelist talk about what are give 3 tips that people should be aware of when they create their own Twitter Spaces. I think there's a lot of tips, but I think if we just did 3, that would be good. So let's start with Tanya McKenzie. What 3 tips would you suggest to a communicator to be aware of when they join Twitter Spaces?
The wonderful thing about communications and PR is that we learn collaboration is everything. It's always great to have someone in the room that can co-host with you, or at least look out for things that you can't see. So while you are moderating, while you are speaking, it would be great to have a co-host. I think that's one of the most powerful things that Twitter Spaces did provide. Also, your leadership is being spotlighted. So make sure that you keep control of your room, you keep control of the conversation, you understand all the tools that are there for you so that you can utilize them, like muting everyone, or even having to take someone out of the room because they can't be respectful. You want your spaces to be a safe space for people to come, be open, and be transparent about whatever those thoughts are. That's what brings value. So you definitely don't want anything getting out of control. So show your leadership and how you can do that, and just be mindful. I think mindfulness is important. And sometimes your moderation would include clarifying things, because not everyone knows how to communicate and lead as well as you. So I think it shows an incredible amount of leadership when you can help provide clarity and transparency in conversations to keep the flow going, and making sure that people are listening to hear, not just listening to respond.
Thank you, Tanya. Dr. J?
Thanks, Tanya. Well, first of all, I want to say all of the things that Tanya just said were absolutely spot on. And all of those are important in the process. But there are also some things behind the scenes that people might not think about. And one of the things that I've been really excited about and use regularly for Twitter Spaces is the review newsletter that can sit in your Twitter bio. And so I post every week when I set my Twitter Space with the URL, then I have a 7-day window that I work information. So whatever my topic is going to be or who my guests are going to be, I can locate tweets, or I can locate resources, and I can drag those things into my review newsletter, so that 2 days after my space ends, I have that information going out to my community. So it's one way to think about using the content here, repurposing content to another direction. I also create a how-to sheet for my guests that gives them what happens when you open your phone, and all through the different things, if they've never done this before, what to expect. And the other thing is to think about, and Jocelyn Mane has been the champion of this, to think about the whole space as a field trip. So if you're working to educate someone, I did a program with InkersCon conference. So I did a presentation about here's what Twitter Spaces is about, and then walked into the space like we're doing today and saying, okay, I'd like everybody to look down at the bottom and see the heart with a plus and give me a big fist sign if you think we're on target with the information that we're talking about, so people can practice what goes on in the space and they know how to move that along. So those are the things that I would suggest right off the bat.
Thank you, Donna. Janine, you want to share your 3 tips?
Absolutely. You ladies are spot on. I agree with everything you've said so far. Some really great tips. To add to that, I know I always appreciate, and you can tell when a host is prepared. And so I always, try my best to prepare myself ahead of time. You may need to wing a few things, and, giving yourself grace, and, you're kind of at the mercy of technology here. But, I always try to be as prepared as possible, and just kind of what that looks like. That could be, definitely, do your research, be familiar with who you will be in the space with, be familiar with your guests, read up on what they've done. You don't want to go into this blindly. Um, and just do your research. Make sure that your your equipment is up to par. If you're streaming, just kind of be prepared, because I think as a guest, and just even as someone who's listening, as a listener, you appreciate when someone has taken the time to really put together something that is going to provide value and help others. So preparedness is a huge thing. Um, and also being intentional. Be intentional. Go into your space really understanding what you want to get out of it, and what the experience you want others to have when they go into your space. Um, I always try to be really intentional about, where I want to go. What's the follow up? Is there a call to action? Um, and just really thinking about it. I can always tell when I just jump into a space and no thought has gone into it, right? And so it just kind of becomes a free for all. So just being really intentional and follow up with your guests. It's all about this whole thing. I feel like social media, we're going back to what it really was meant for. We kind of went through that whole phase of, quick, bite size, very impersonal type of information. And I feel like we're going back to what social media was really meant to be, is that it's supposed to be social, right? And so, really just having those dialogues, and, as much as we talk, also listen. But for me, when we have guests on, I really love to follow back up with them and see how they're doing. Um, how can we continue to help? Because that's how you really just craft those relationships, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. When you build those relationships, and this is why I say these Twitter spaces are so impactful, because it really does take it to the next level, right? So those follow-ups, making sure that, hey, how are you guys doing? It's been a while. You want to maybe just collaborate on another space, or how can we do something else for our followers? I mean, that kind of stuff. So those 3 things: intentionality, follow up, and preparedness are my 3 top tips. I'm going to mute myself because I talk too much.
Oh, you're perfect. And Samantha, Oh my God, I think you pinned something up. I really like that. I wanted to, you pinned something. Want real conversations? Can you share with us?
Yeah, if you slide over, I can put it to the front again if you want. If you slide over one, so there's a slideshow at the top. That was actually going to be one of my tips. So as a Twitter Space host or co-host, it's really good to learn how to leverage and optimize what the nest at the top. So we have to use bird language because it's Twitter. And using the bird language, you can nest a tweet in the top there, and it's a slideshow essentially. So if you slide over one, you'll see a tweet that I wrote some time ago after a space. If you want real conversations without varied cultural customs that get in the way, worrying about your appearance, stereotypes, gender separations, rich versus poor separation, or educational differences, try out Twitter Spaces. And that's what I love about Twitter Spaces. So that nest you can use for anything. What's really cool is Dr. Day or Donna and I were running, we did a book launch a little while ago for a gal, and we had over 180 people drop into that space. And we were able to get her, we coached her, and she able to get quite a bit of her tweets ready ahead of time. And while we were running the book launch, she had it up in the nest at the top, and she was able to track how many people were clicking them that took her straight to buying the book. So that is a good way to leverage those nests. You can use it also for people to sign up for call to actions. So if you have a newsletter or a YouTube channel, I just have a brand new YouTube channel, and I was trying to get to 100 so I could get a custom URL. And so I just put it up into the top of the nest there and said, hey, can people help me out? And then people went over straight away and started subscribing to my YouTube channel. So there's lots of ways to build in CTAs, call to actions in the nest. So that's really important. The other thing that I really want to highlight is just validating the other speakers. So learning some skills or going online and learning about the difference between moderating and facilitating and hosting. What happens in Twitter Spaces is you end up doing all three, and you can do one. Sometimes you're doing only one. So a moderator is controlling the room, a facilitator is encouraging and getting great conversation, and then a host can be all of them, and sometimes they're just the basically the main account that's holding it. So you will get people who come up. I have little names for them, like the serial storyteller or the political ranter, or, we get a variety of different types that come up onto the speaker panel. And I always think it's really important to validate people, even if what they're talking about is completely off topic or potentially inappropriate. It depends on how inappropriate. But I try to really honor people the best I can. Everyone's from different cultures. They may be new to Twitter Spaces. And so you just don't know. And when they come on, I will hit the mute when they take a breath and then say, hey, I really appreciate your passion, or it sounds like you've got a great life story. Thank you so much for sharing your passion with us today, or something like that. And so just learning how to do that creates a really great space for everybody else to feel welcome. And I think that's a really important tip. And I think that's why I think that's what makes a good host or facilitator, is just knowing what to do in those particular cases. So one side note about the nest while I'm thinking about it, you can ask your participants to bookmark the tweet, because once the space closes, they don't have access to the tweet anymore in the nest. And so if I had a call to action up there, or maybe I've put some good content up there, I can say to them, hey, you can bookmark this and then come back to it later. So if any of us have what's called Twitter Blue, you can actually put those into categories. And so that can be really helpful for repurposing. I've written articles like 3 months ago, and we'll be talking in a space. I'll be like, oh, wait a minute, I wrote a tweet about that, or I wrote a thread about that. And I'll go pull it up and put it in the nest. And so I'm repurposing old content that I wrote months ago, and all of a sudden people are retweeting it again. So it's a really good way to repurpose your previous content.
Wow, I think you gave my example. No, I'm teasing. You did great. Oh my gosh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ladies, you guys gave some incredible tips. The only tip that I can think of, since everyone covered pretty much everything, is make sure your app's updated. It's like before you log on, before you start, go look in the app store, and just to make sure Twitter is updated. Because if you don't update your app, nothing works, and it would be very frustrating. And just really, my second tip is really pay attention to the space. Meaning, when people speak, you can hear their, the noises. You can hear the sound, anything that you can hear. But also, if you're having a bad connection, it will tell you. That's one thing. And the new word, I guess I learned this from NGO. Geo and Stu space. It's called rugging. When you get kicked out, it's called rugged. So I learned that the other day. So I thought that's kind of cool word. Because when you get kicked out, one thing nice about Twitter Space is that you can come right back in, and if you're kicked off as a speaker, you can request again. So again, make sure you update your Twitter app. That's extremely, and make sure that you allow the microphone to be used. And I think you guys covered everything, because that's the only thing I could think of right now. But it is now 12:33, and I want to go ahead and bring up some other speakers that requested, and my good friend Ariel, who is also a Twitter Space host. And I think Fatima, you had a question for us?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm really enjoying the conversation. I just wanted to jump in. Folks in North America might not actually know that I know Twitter Spaces kicked off, I think, last November, but they're starting to kind of become like there's more hype around them now. Just want to talk about, because I'm Pakistani diaspora living in Canada. So in the subcontinent, like people made out like gangbusters. There are right now on my timeline, there are like 5 Twitter spaces happening in tandem, all from India and Pakistan. So I think the pandemic kind of lent to that, where, as a person, we're all social animals, and there's this real culture, especially in the subcontinent, to kind of regroup at the end of the day, to have some tea, connect with friends. And I think because of the pandemic and with restrictions around the world, that was a gap that people felt, and Twitter Spaces really filled it up. And so that's something that's really taken off, and people have actually really formed friendships all around the world with diaspora living in different parts of the world. And especially for women, they found a really safe space where where we're doing conversations that possibly would have never been talked about prior to this, because say women living in Pakistan would not be connecting to, say, women like me living here in Canada, and then we're talking about harassment or the Women's Protection Bill, or access to reproductive rights, or menstruation problems, or access to that. There's just so many great conversations happening that were impossible prior, because everybody has an internet connection, but unfortunately didn't always have access to the right people, or just listening to other women talk and feel that you're less alone has been one of the great joys, as somebody that's part of the diaspora, listening to my fellow sisters and then connecting with them. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think that's not really documented anywhere or very well known, but it's been going on since last year. So we're pretty well versed now in Twitter Spaces, and yeah, it's become almost like a collective and you've got a lot of feminists rallying together, pushing for more reform. So there's definitely change, and people are getting uncomfortable and sitting up and listening to things that were possibly talked about in safe spaces that were living rooms, but now you've got men sitting in while women talk about the issues that they face, or harassment on the street or in public transport, and how we need more space. So it's been phenomenal in that way. I just wanted to add that, but because I feel like maybe that wasn't common knowledge, in North America. Thank you.
Thank you for with me too, because I can go into Tanya's space. It's not just America; she has people from all over sharing the greatest, events or the greatest thing that's happened to them this week. And then I go into Dr. J's space. It's the same thing. She has incredible her sexuality space, where she talks some intimate stories, and you hear these ladies sharing their thoughts. So, and Samantha, I wake up early in the morning, and there's Samantha in a room with people from all over the world, and so I get very impressed. And so Janine and I, we've done some spaces together. We have our full cause, and we bring people together. So, but then I want to go ahead and share the mic also. Give the mic to my good friend Ariel, who does host an incredible space. Ariel, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I'm new job, new opportunities. It's funny. I feel outnumbered as a man here, but that's all good. like a room full of them. But it's funny because I've always heard of Tanya talk about her association for women in communication, but I've just heard her talk about it. But now that's the host over here, so now I finally actually see it. So that's cool. Yeah, I just wanted to come in, and since like I this is my day off from work, I only have a limited amount of time. I just wanted to say that Tanya Schulz is like the friendliest, most upbeat, like just cool person you'll ever meet. If you ever have any doubts about like some kind of aspiration you have or some kind of idea you have, I mean, I've always been a little kid, always dreaming about like changing the ideas and the world, and how most of our communication we get from the television or from YouTube. It's always one way. It's always one person to like a large audience, and you can respond in the comments section. But the problem with these comment sections is that they turn so toxic. Everybody's looking for something to jab at someone, to bring somebody down, to and my experience with Twitter Spaces has been like finally a place where we're not looking to like find something to dunk on someone or tell a person that they're being bad or wrong or this or that. We have so much of that garbage, and it's finally a place where we can say, hey, I have an idea, you have an idea, this other person wants to do some good in the world. Let's concentrate on that. And, that's what makes me so happy about, the whole thing. And it's finally nice to meet this Association for Women in Communication. I finally see it. Tanya's been talking about so much. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Ariel. This is Molly Hall. And I have to say, we have a lot of men on this Twitter space, and I am grateful. I also want to make clear that Women in Communications has male members. My husband, who is in communications, is a member, and of course, his wife and his daughter, who is an adult professional in communications. We're a communications family, and we have a lot of support from men who support the industry, the communications industry, and support the women in their lives that are working in it, and their women colleagues. I just wanted to clarify that we have a lot of men on this call, and Ariel, you're not the only one. So we have a lot of folks here, and I'm delighted because I think, and in fact, I will say in our Springfield chapter programs, I don't think we've had a program in recent years where we haven't had male attendees. You know, this is a collective. This is a collaborative.
That's
So
wonderful.
just so you know.
For sure, my bachelor's degree is in communication studies, so I'm in the right place.
Yes, absolutely. Tanya, I'm going to let you take it away again.
We have about 19 minutes. If anybody want to grab the mic and share their story, you're welcome to. But and if you have any questions, go ahead and grab the mic. We have a pretty
last 30 days, and then there'll be an audio file in there of the space. It's pretty decent audio, so you can still get it. I personally always put record at the top, even if just because people are always recording, and I think it's important for people to know that Twitter is always recording and that a host can access that. So just for transparency reasons, I always put record at the top, even if it's not going to be posted on Twitter. And also too, I personally find that it cleans up my room a bit. So I hardly ever have problems with rogue speakers. I think just because they know they're being recorded and it says record on the top. So you may get, there's a lot of debate about whether you'll get less people in your room. And that's probably true. I may get less people in my room because I put record at the top, but the quality of the experience is better. And I think people just feel at ease. The other thing that I noticed, and just for all of you who are here, when you put record at the top, generally when people speak and they know they're going to be recorded, they spend a little bit more time articulating before they come on the stage or before they speak. So they may have a couple of points. And so I find that the rooms run a little bit tighter. I would like to give a really big networking tip that I think is underused. So all of you are going to get a little teeny masterclass on networking using Twitter Spaces. This works amazingly well. When you meet with somebody, you connect with them in a Twitter space, you love what they said, or you connected with something they said, there's a few things that you can do for any of you who are listening in the audience. So you can tweet out. One time I said something in a Twitter space kind of off the cuff. I kind of said, hang out with happy people. You know, if you want to be a happy person. And I think 3 people tweeted it out. And I was like, oh, that really resonates with people. So I learned from that. So they tweeted it out, tagged me. So that's a good way for them to get noticed. On top of that, what I'd probably do if I was tweeting that out for somebody, I would actually put that into a DM. So the power of the direct messaging for Twitter Spaces is really profound. So what I was in a Twitter space the other day, and there's 3 freaking amazing speakers. The value was unbelievable. It's probably one of the best spaces I've been in. And I DM'd every single one of them and gave them a thank you, said, this is something I learned from you. Thank you so much. And then what I do is I screenshot every space I'm in. It's a way of logging. And I added this screenshot into the DM. So what I've done now is left a breadcrumb for us. So in 1-2 months down the road, they maybe see me in a space, or I see them, or someone refers us. If I'm looking in the direct messages, all of a sudden I have this like little mini story of how we met, where we met, and it jogs your memory. It's sort of like a journal when you see all the pictures of the people in there. And this has worked really profoundly. I teach this networking tip a lot. You can use it in any platform you want. And a couple months ago, or a month ago, I was contacted by someone on LinkedIn. And she wanted to interview me for her new book. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know who this is. And I felt kind of embarrassed, but then I looked at the DMs, and we had met in a thought leadership conference via Zoom in Australia like 6 months ago. But because I had incorporated this method in the DM, where this is where we met, hey, nice to meet you, and I had a little picture of the conference we were in, and it right away jogged my memory. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, we were the same table and we talked about this. And so then I was able to jump from the conversation. This is so powerful. For any of you in the room, please use this. We do like it even better if you tweet it out instead of just in the DM. And if you tweet it out, then add it into the DM so that we double see it. Because like in 3 months from now, I'm not going to remember that you tweeted it out, and I won't have a copy of it anywhere. So that's a really good networking tip for Twitter Spaces.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's incredible. Right, Molly?
Yes, it sure is. We might need another Twitter Spaces gathering just to help us plant some of these seeds, because I don't know how to do some of that. So, but I can guarantee you, I'm going to be on your Spaces because I'm learning so much, and it sounds so interesting. The different topics that are covered in a Twitter Spaces and the interaction. I'm just fascinated by this. It's so exciting.
So we have a couple more speakers. I just want to make sure we give them the mic. We had 3, but I think he left already. But let's give this to Yench. Did I pronounce your name right? I think you were here earlier.
Thank you. Hi. I just have a question for the panel, since we have such gathered wisdom. I was just wondering what the panel thought about why Clubhouse didn't get traction the way that Twitter Spaces has.
Because it's like high school all over again. I just want to laugh every time someone asks. I've been doing a lot of live stream interviews lately on Twitter Spaces, and every single host asks me this question about Clubhouse, and I just start laughing. And I'm like, I personally think, well, one, it was only iOS to begin with, so no Android user, so that was huge. And it took them a long time before they got to Android. The other is there's just no way to connect with people because they had no direct message ability. You had to go through another platform like Instagram or something like this. But for some of us who love Twitter Spaces, for me, the biggest deal was it's just this user experience. I feel like I'm back in junior high and high school all over again. You're like, you got all the like really popular kids at the top, and then you have a line, and then all the people who want to be with the popular kids are in the middle, and then all the like peons are on the bottom. And I know I'm being a little flippant, but that's what it feels like when I'm in a Clubhouse. Whereas Twitter did something super brilliant. They like, honestly, they feed our egos. I jumped into a space the other day, and let's just say Elon Musk opened a space right now. If he opened a space and we all jumped in, you would be able to take a screenshot with your image right up next to Elon Musk, or pretty darn close. Because what Twitter does is it goes and puts you up near the top. Even if there's 5,000 people in the space, it will show you at the top. And you will there's an algorithm in the background that will put you with all the people you kind of know in your area, so you feel like if any of us ladies jump into a room, like let's say we were in an Elon Musk and there's 5,000 in there, Tanya and Dr. J, Janine and Tanya, like the other Tanya, we'd all be kind of together, and we feel like we're in a concert or in a conference with all of them. The other is that Twitter Spaces has the ability to put the nest in the top, so we can repurpose our content, and people can look at our timelines and find out more about us, but I really think the direct messaging is one of the hugest reasons. The ability to continue on conversations and network with people is pretty profound. There's some hands up. We got some more opinions about Clubhouse. I do like Clubhouse too, but that's just my opinion about the two different ones.
I wanted to follow up with you on that in regards to the authenticity of how it flowed, right? So there are many of us that are on here for professional reasons already. Clubhouse started kind of like a popularity contest, and you have to know someone to get in, where Twitter is somewhere that everyone has always been welcome. Many people have different reasons why. We also have different handles. So I know our Twitter space, one of our hosts, she has her personal and she has her professional account. She hosts with me on her professional account. And so she comes with a professional mindset. So back to what you said earlier, it's like junior high school feel. Yeah, it authentically feels professional because we are drawn to each other professionally most of the time in this room. And if we happen to share a laugh or something of that nature, it's authentic and it's also very organic. So I think, especially because we're connected now, when I do see something that you're doing, it comes down my timeline in a very authentic way. Oh, what she does interests me. Let me go see what she's doing today. Let me hop in that space. So I think there's a level of authenticity and professionalism that has come with Twitter Spaces that might not have been, necessarily in Clubhouse. Just my opinion.
And also Twitter's been here. Twitter has been, I joined Twitter. I heard about Twitter in 2007 when they first started going. So again, they've made a lot of their mistakes in the early days. So again, Clubhouse is a new platform. When I go to Clubhouse, in my opinion, because I think I was like the second set of people that they gave the ability to use Clubhouse, but they wouldn't let me get in there unless I literally let them have my whole phone book, which is, I wasn't too happy about it, but I just went ahead and did it just to see what it looks like in there. And so now when I go into Clubhouse, it's freaking all my friends are in there because it tells you, oh, she's joined Clubhouse. Do you want to follow them? And I'm sort of thinking, how, even my son's girlfriend is in there. So it was kind of really weird, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to dump your whole phone book in there just to get in there. But I did, again, when the couple times I went to a Clubhouse room, I felt like I'm being reprimanded, being told what to do. I like this whole Twitter spaces when we're all equal and we can talk and share our stories and our accomplishment, and without no judgment or anything, just being real, when I go to Clubhouse, I feel it's different. And even though I'll go into a room that's hosted by an influencer who is a really good friend of mine, and on Facebook and in other social network, but there's no connection for me. So again, Clubhouse is good for certain people, but like every platform is made for certain people. How